What's going on, everyone? Gareth with FCP here. Welcome back to another DIY video. Today, we're going to be changing the oil on an E92 M3, which is on the lift behind me. So this DIY is going to apply to any 2008, 2013 M3, E90, E92, E93. It doesn't matter. It's the exact same process because it's the exact same S65 V8 we've all come to love. In my opinion, oil change intervals on this car, really any BMW for that matter, BMW says 10,000 miles. It used to be 15,000 miles. Those numbers are insane to me. I like to change oil at 5,000 mile intervals with a high quality synthetic oil. We're using Liqui Moly 10W60 for this application today, along with the OE Mala filter. And in this vehicle's particular case, I do the additive. So I'm gonna be adding MOS2 to the oil today. Previously, it had a Ceratec treatment, which I do over 25,000 miles, and I do the MOS2 treatments in between those intervals at 5,000 miles up until the next Ceratec treatment. So really, anything I could do to help reduce bearing wear or any kind of internal engine wear, I'm going to do. This is an easy thing to add. There's no negatives to doing it. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this oil has held up. Previously sent a sample out to Blackstone before. Everything was great, no sign of bearing wear, and I do know I have the old lead-based bearings, so there's a very easy telltale situation to know if bearing wear is happening. At 50,000 miles, we'll see what that looks like, but I'm sure it's probably gonna be just fine. So with that said, let's talk about some of the tools you need to do an oil change on an E90 M3, and then we can go ahead and jump right into it. Some tools you're going to have on hand. You're going to want a torque wrench. You can do 25 newton-meters of torque. That's going to be both for the drain plugs on the oil pan and the oil filter housing cap. 3/8 ratchet, preferably a long one. 36 millimeter 6-point oil filter socket. 6 millimeter Allen, 3/8 extension. I like to use these pocket screwdrivers for dealing with like all the O-rings and stuff on the oil filter cap itself. And then we have this CTA no spill funnel, which makes putting oil in the engine a mess-free affair. And then of course you need some kind of container for dumping the oil into, you know, when you're draining it, but you should already have that covered if you're about to do an oil change. Whatever you do, don't drain it into a street drain and don't drain it in your front yard, okay? Captain Planet's not gonna like you. So, order of operations here, I like to take our cap and loosen it like that. That's going to help with the draining process. Of course, these cars don't have dipsticks. We're going to take our 36 millimeter socket with our extension. And the key here is to take the filter out and not make a giant mess, because that can then be confused as an oil leak later on, which we don't want. So there are aluminum oil filter housing caps available. We do carry them here at FCP Euro. I was gonna get one for my M3. This is actually my car, just didn't have time before this video, but you can always put them on later. BMW M plastic, it's a match made in heaven or hell, depending on how you look at it. I mean, really the only failure mode on these caps is if they're over tightened, which you shouldn't be. It's a O-ring seal, but a lot of people tend to over tighten them who are inexperienced. Now the key here is, yep, there we go. As you pull this out, it's gonna want to sploosh some oil out, which is why I put the rag by the upper radiator hose. Kind of almost unavoidable because it creates suction. And of course the housing is angled, so it just loves to freaking drip. Pull the filter out. I always like to take a look at the filter to see if there's any debris in it. We will ditch our sealing O-ring, and then we have a little O-ring here for the drain back. It's very important that this gets replaced, and it does serve a function. You don't want oil bypassing the filter because that O-ring is missing. We'll slide the new O-ring on, and we will lubricate that O-ring with some engine oil. And then we'll take the new filter. These don't have a orientation they need to go in. I just prefer the lettering going up. I don't know why, it doesn't matter. And I just press it in until you hear a click, like so. And now we will take this and we will thread it back in. Now I'm sure somebody is gonna be screaming, why don't you take the oil, the residual that's in the oil filter housing, honestly, there's really no point. Yeah, you could clean out if you really wanted to, but there's still residual oil throughout the entire engine. So just cleaning out the filter housing is not accomplishing anything. And you're replacing majority of the engine oil anyway. Any residual that's in there is not really going to be a big deal at the end of the day. If you want to do it, it's your choice, but I don't think it actually serves a purpose. So I'm going to call that 25 Newton meters, and we're going to see how well my hands are calibrated today by using a torque wrench. I have seen some of these listed at 40 Newton meters, but this cap that's on here specifically says 25, and they do tell you it requires a 36 millimeter socket, but did I get it? Almost. I was just a little bit under, it would have been fine. This O-ring right here is what seals the filter housing, not the tightness of the cap. It's very much like if you had a spin-on filter, it's the same thing, that little rubber seal at the bottom. That's what makes the seal. People tend to over-tighten those. People tend to over-tighten these as well. Over-tightening is what will cause the leak, especially if you crack the cover. And you do not want that to happen. And then I'll just get some brake parts cleaner on a clean rag and just wipe away the residual oil that was on the outside of that cap. It is a little bit of a messy operation. There really is no way to avoid it. And you know, in this case, I just leave the cap loose so that it can, you know, air will get in and it'll drain out. But yeah, any of the top loads, I just try to do it that way. E90X M3s have two drain plugs. You have a secondary sump here and a primary sump here. These are 6 millimeter Allens. I will say, make sure you are using really, really good high quality Allen sockets. These have a tendency to round out, and make sure the Allen is all the way in. So I always press up on these simultaneously as I'm turning to loosen, because if you round one of these out, you're in for a rough day. And once they break free, you know, I'll just spin them out by hand. Now this front sump here, there really won't be too much oil that comes out of here. In fact, I've seen a lot of people just not drain this at all, but I will, because there is a decent amount that actually is in there. I'm going to take an oil sample though from the secondary sump where a majority of the oil ends up, and I'm going to send that off to Blackstone. All right, so now we're going to come to the drain plug here towards the rear, which is really the main sump, and this is where a majority of the engine oil typically would be. Same thing, 6 millimeter Allen, just make sure it's in there. I like to push up, give it nice one swift, and you know, it'll break free. And also, you know, if you suspect that maybe the drain plug is towards the end of its life, now would be a really good time to replace it. Yeah, so this oil should have about 5,000 miles on it. It's about a year old. Really sticking with that 5,000 mile per year average. So the forward sump, it's just dripping at this point. So I can go ahead and put the drain plug back on. Of course, I took off the old crush washer. Make sure the crush washer was stuck to the drain plug, which is, I think, the more common scenario. But just make sure if you don't see the crush washer on the drain plug, make sure it's still not stuck to the oil pan. If you were to double gasket the drain plug, you're going to have a leak, and you don't want that. So torque spec on the drain plugs is the same as the oil filter cap, 25 Newton meters. So we have a stream of oil coming out of the rear sump here. Yeah, I mean, we could sit here probably for an hour and it would still be dripping out. But again, this kind of goes back to the same issue at the oil filter housing. If you want to sit there all day and, you know, let it stop, you can. But we're talking about such small amounts of old engine oil, and there is still a bunch of residual in that once you're dumping in 8.5 liters of new oil, none of that stuff is even going to be part of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and put the drain plug back on. Again, just make sure the original crush washer came off with the plug. If it didn't come off the plug, make sure it's not stuck to the bottom of the pan where it seats. And we'll thread it back in. and 25 newton meters, same as the front sump there. Take some brake parts cleaner and just kind of clean off the area from any residual. Don't want to confuse any of that with oil that was just from surrounding when we took the drain plugs off. You know, again, you don't want to confuse the work that you just did with an oil leak later on. So work clean. Now this is right here where you don't pay for your own shop supplies. Go ahead and just use the entire can, all right? All right, we're done underneath, and now we'll go ahead and refill it. All right, so our fill capacity is gonna be 8.5 liters. The kit comes with 9, which leaves you an extra half for top offs. I already had a half liter in the trunk, so I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in, which is gonna leave me a full liter. So next time I go do the oil change, I just need to buy 8. And again, this is the CTA no spill funnel. We featured in a bunch of oil change videos before. It's great, holds quite a bit of oil, and you just pour it in there. You don't have to worry about it spilling anywhere. The Look-A-Molly bottles do have their own little built-in funnel, but depending where the oil fill is, I wouldn't rely on it. The CTA funnel is just a really good tool to have around. I literally just put 1 bottle. It says up to 6 liters, but I'm not gonna buy another can just to do that. So I went ahead and just mixed up some MOS2 with what I have left over in this 5-liter jug. Just kind of pour that in. That way when I pour the other 3.5 liters in, it'll kind of wash itself throughout the system. Also, if you see some oil seepage around the oil filler cap, the cap that I have in here right now is relatively new as well, but these just don't have a ton of retention, so the seal over time just doesn't really seal up very well, and oil film will always end up around the filler cap because your Vanos sprockets are directly below it. So you have nice filmed oil just slinging against the bottom of that. Yeah, so at this point, all we really need to do is reset your oil change service interval, the condition-based services. Go ahead and reset it so the counter starts all over again. You can either do it with a scan tool or do it the manual way. We have an instruction video on how to do that, but that's a very straightforward process. But past that, oil changes are super easy maintenance. Like I said, I recommend doing every 5,000 miles. If you track the car, you drive the car, you know, a lot, heavy duty usage, really hot environments, whatever, maybe you want to do it quicker, but oil changes are the cheapest service maintenance that you can do to any car. It will absolutely prolong the service life of the vehicle, so there's no need to extend the service interval out. Also consider filters break down over time too. They could become clogged. So between your filter, between the oil, no damage has ever been done from servicing it more frequently. So that's my recommendation on these. Just service it, keep the engine clean on the inside, and you'll probably have no problems for a long period of time. So very simple, straightforward process. I know the engine and everything, all this could look very kind of scary, but this is no different than changing oil in any other BMW. It's a very straightforward process. Very limited hand tools required, but definitely something you could do at home. And we hope you learned a lot in this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave in the comment box below. If you like this video, hit the like button. Of course, hit subscribe. We have a lot of videos on the way as always. And we'll see you for the next one. Thanks for watching.